cat has decided to get in this box and make lots of noise. So I guess be prepared to hear some of that in the video. Greetings to all who wish to be greeted. I'm MegaPacKid, and this is my game shelf. I have so many games in my collection that I could talk about, and I haven't even played most of them yet. I want to make one up. Super Smash Bros. Wasn't the first crossover, but it's one of the most famous. What started out as an original IP, Dragon King the fighting game, became a crossover of Nintendo's most iconic characters after Now series director Masahiro Sakurai put together a demo of this concept in action. Smash Bros. Hasn't had any heavy competition ever since the first game released in 1999. After Sony crashed and burned, there haven't been any other heavy hitters stepping up to bat. However, Warner Brothers and Nickelodeon decided to throw their hats into the crossover fighting game ring early this decade. Both of them have characters as iconic as Nintendo, so this should be a breeze, right? They certainly thought so, because Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl and Warner Brothers' Multiverses hit the scene in the early 2020s. It's honestly a little odd that Disney hasn't thrown their hat, or musketeer ears rather, into the ring, especially considering that this is their 100th anniversary. You're telling me that Bob Iger, who just got renamed CEO today, has a century of content at his fingertips, and he isn't using any of that for a crossover fighting game? Well, Mr. Iger, if you're watching, if you won't do it, then I will. And if you decide to use any of these ideas, which you're more than free to, all I ask for return is a review copy, because honestly, it'd be a really cool sequel to this video if I actually got to review the ideas. By far, the most interesting element of any Smash Bros. Game is the playable characters, so that's the element that I'm going to talk about first. The first Smash Bros. Game had only 12 characters, and if this game were released today, it would probably definitely have more, especially if we use Multiverses and Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl as a base. However, I would like to use 12 characters because not only is that number significant to the first Smash Bros., but it's also limiting. And I feel like for the first game, at least for this video, conceptually, we should use characters that are unequivocally important to Disney. These are going to represent the facets of Disney that really matter. Let's start with Disney's mascot franchise, Mickey Mouse and Friends. This franchise is the only one to have multiple representatives for this video because I really do want to represent all facets of Disney. However, Mickey Mouse and Friends has 3 characters that are so important, it would be weird if this game didn't have them. Mickey Mouse, Donald Duck, and Goofy. Mickey, Donald, and Goofy have been together for the better part of 90 years, so it definitely makes sense that they're going to be together in this game. There are tons of shorts, TV shows, even movies that you can pull content from in order to get a moveset with plenty of references. Easily the most iconic part of Disney that isn't the Walt Disney Company is Pixar. Disney and Pixar go all the way back to the 90s when they offered to fund not just a short film, but a feature film. This is where we get Toy Story from, and Toy Story is where we get this next character, Buzz Lightyear, from. I chose Buzz because while there are certainly a lot of other Pixar characters, Buzz is easily very iconic to Pixar. Did you know that if you work for Pixar for 10 years, you get a bronze Buzz Lightyear statue? That's awesome! I found that out in the making of documentary of Lightyear, which is another reason why Buzz is here. Buzz is probably the easiest character to make a moveset out of. I mean, he has karate chop action built in. Buzz represents so much to Pixar, so he really has to be here, even if Woody is arguably more of the main character in the Toy Story movies. Disney purchased Pixar in 2005, and 3 years later, they purchased Marvel. So, who am I going to get to represent Marvel? Well, obviously Disney has the most involvement with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the MCU, and that has plenty of iconic characters. With Mickey Mouse and Friends being the only franchise I'm giving multiple characters, that means I have to choose one character to represent all of Marvel. Unfortunately, Disney doesn't own Spider-Man, who I really would have liked to use here, given how important he is to comic book movies. So the next character I chose is the Incredible Hulk. I don't want to give any spoilers for the MCU in case you haven't seen it yet, but the Incredible Hulk is incredibly important to the MCU, and additionally, he's a character that is still being used. I really wanted a Donkey Kong-like character, and the Incredible Hulk is easily the best fit for that. A few years after the Marvel acquisition, Disney bought Lucasfilm, which came with Star Wars. Star Wars has many iconic characters and was probably the hardest franchise to choose a representative for, because, again, I have to choose one. I narrowed it down to a few iconic characters, but decided that R2-D2 was the best character to use. It was really difficult picking one character to represent all of Star Wars, but after thinking about it for a while, R2-D2 was the easy choice. R2-D2 is so iconic to Star Wars. He's been in the main 9 movies and has even been in a bunch of other spin-off stuff, like the Droids cartoon. Everyone knows the Droids cartoon. Darth Vader was also considered, but hey, if I ever make a part 2 to this video, I'll probably talk about it. Hey, remember when I said Mickey Mouse and Friends was the only franchise that was going to have multiple characters? I lied. Well, I didn't. Technically, Disney Princesses is itself a brand, but if it's any consolation, these two characters are from 2 different franchises, being Elsa and Mulan. It does make sense that Mulan would be in a fighting game, given that that's kind of her thing. I mean, she even joins the military, just like Buzz did. Elsa is also incredibly iconic to Disney, especially right now, so it makes sense that these two are going to be the Disney princess representatives, at least in this first game. Speaking of female fighters, Miss Piggy is probably the best representative for the Muppet Show. Don't get me wrong, Kermit is the most iconic Muppet, but Miss Piggy's a better fighter. Of course, the Muppets isn't the only out-of-left-field thing that Disney owns. They also own The Simpsons, which they regularly use to promote Disney Plus for some reason. All 4 Simpsons have not only been around for a long time, but even have their own beat-em-up arcade game. You could definitely get a moveset for all 4 of them if you wanted, but the one that I wanted to include is Bart. I don't regularly watch The Simpsons, but I do know that of the 4 of them, Bart is the most likely to be chosen for a fighting game like this. Maybe Homer, just because he's an adult and also the mascot of The Simpsons, but Bart's the one that you're gonna think of if you think of fighters. Bart also represents the fact that Disney owns Fox, so he's definitely going to be in for the initial 12. Following Bart, I wanted to include a 2020s rep, and I also wanted to include a Disney Channel rep. I grew up with Disney Channel. I honestly love it, even still to this day. But it was really difficult choosing a character for Disney Channel. Disney Channel has so many iconic characters, but I decided to go with someone who I feel, at least, fits the bill for Disney Channel as it is today. Luz Noceda from the Owl House. Dipper and Mabel and Phineas and Ferb may be more iconic to Disney Channel, but Luz has better moveset potential. I want diverse movesets in this game, so Luz being a magic user definitely gives her a few points in terms of being included, at least for me. The last facet of Disney I wanted to include was Disney Junior, known as Playhouse Disney back in the day. I don't watch Disney Junior, so this was a harder pick to go for, but I decided on Handy Manny. Handy Manny is a good representative of Disney Junior, especially because he's been around since Playhouse Disney. I don't think Handy Manny is getting new episodes, but in terms of characters who are fighters, I feel like the guy with living tools is probably a good move. Mickey Mouse definitely represents Disney Junior a little from Mickey Mouse Clubhouse, but Handy Manny was created for Disney Junior, and that's why he's on this list. That's the roster of characters that I would put in this game. There are definitely some more who deserve to be in a Disney crossover fighter, and again, if I ever make a sequel to this video, I'm definitely going to include them, because I know you're probably thinking of a few. Let me know in the comments below which characters you would put in a crossover fighter for Disney. Before I end the video though, I want to talk about a few other elements, stages mainly. What good are characters in a platform fighter if they don't have platforms to fight on? The Mickey Mouse Clubhouse is definitely going to be on this list because, again, cool Disney Junior representation, and also I think it's probably the most iconic locale for Mickey Mouse specifically. Avengers Tower and the Death Star are definitely some other iconic places. Elsa's Ice Castle would also be cool. It'd be neat to have a fighting stage with ice physics. And I also think that the castle from the Disney logo itself would be a good fit. I think about it like a reverse version of Final Destination from Super Smash Bros. Final Destination is one platform that's surrounded by the void, whereas the Disney logo would be two platforms that go out to the void with nothing in the middle. Rounding out this list of stages, the Owl House would make a cool stage. I think Hootie would be a good stage hazard. And Disneyland, specifically these flowers with Mickey Mouse's face, I think would be an iconic background to have for this game. I definitely think that this game would benefit from having a single player offering, either something similar to Smash Bros.'s classic mode, or even something like the Subspace Emissary. I think if you're gonna have all of these iconic characters together, they gotta interact somehow. I think the equivalent to Smash Bros.' Master Hand would be Bill Cipher from Gravity Falls. I definitely think that he's a good choice to have for this game. I think Maleficent and Thanos would also be pretty good choices for boss characters, and I really think an AT-AT from Star Wars would be iconic for that series. Like, there are other characters, but, I mean, come on. Don't you want to see Handy Manny take on one of these things? So that's how I'd make a Disney crossover fighter if I could only use 12 characters. It makes me wonder how this idea might change if I had the level of freedom the roster of Super Smash Bros. Ultimate would give me. If you want to see a part 2 to this video, and you even have suggestions for it, let me know in the comment section below. I'd love to read them. Unfortunately, I'm not going to make it like next week or anything. It's not like making Super Smash Bros. Ultimate was as easy as 1, 2. Well, joke's on you, mysterious teleportation. I was going to talk about things you could do outside anyway.